Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Zombie Train. This is episode 239. I am your host, Ellis, otherwise known as Train Man, and this footage is from Under Construction episode 26, I believe, which will be coming out at about the same time, so check that out. I build an orchard, and I play with industries and do a lot of math. So if you like math, watch the episode. If you don't like math, I don't know, watch the episode anyways, just pity me, I don't know. No, I'm kidding. It's a lot of industry calculation stuff, so it's not all that interesting, but soon I'll be leaving all of it. Anyways, I digress. We're going to move on to the subject for this episode, which is the number 3 coach in the train, and that is the lounge car. This was, of course, tipped off by a question by Dean on episode 209. I've already read it twice on the air. I'm not going to do it a third time. So, the lounge car was the third car in the train, and it was the least purposeful car in the train. It was the last car that we actually gave a defined purpose because we didn't really know what to do with it before then, and that's why it became a lounge car. But it was the kind of thing where when we had the time and resources where we were just sort of sitting on our thumbs and asking and thinking, well, what are we going to do with this extra coach? Oh, you know what, let's just turn it into some leisure space. Because the fact of the matter was, despite the fact that there was so much to do on the train, when you have about 30 people, you don't have a job for everyone. There were people making food, there were people taking inventory, there was there was a person in the foundry making stuff, and of course there were us up in the engine and the guys in the caboose, but other than that and the clerical stuff and like the radio stuff, you can only have so many people doing things at a given time, so you have a lot of downtime if you're not like me, running the engine, etc. If you don't have a dedicated job and you're part of one of the scouting teams, then you just hang out in the meantime. And that doesn't mean you can't be doing something productive. The war room is always open. You can always go up there and check maps and think about plans and do things like that. But for the majority of people, it's not something that they're really versed in doing, and they don't, they're not going to necessarily take the time to learn when there are plenty of people on the train who know how to do that and what to do. So, that being said, it was sort of a culmination of people that weren't me, people that did not have dedicated jobs while we were moving, that decided that it would be a great idea to turn the third coach in the train, which was doing nothing, into a sort of leisure area. And I agreed. I thought that it was good to have a place where we could go when we had some downtime, and as well when we were stopped, it provided a place for us to hang out if there was nothing in the surrounding area. If we were in an urbanized or semi-urbanized area, obviously we'd have people standing guard, but we'd have people standing guard no matter what. But we wouldn't want to venture out into an abandoned area to sort of chill. If we were in an urbanized area, obviously we'd be scouting. We'd be doing surveys, and we'd be doing what's the word? Scavenging is the right word. And so sorry, I just got sidetracked a little bit. So we would be keeping busy there, but if we parked in a non-urbanized area, like if we had to stop to take on water or something in the middle of nowhere, or we were to stop to sit the night in the middle of nowhere, then there'd be nothing to do outside the train. You'd have a few people watching, one person watching the head end, one person watching the tail end, and a couple of people just sort of doing patrols, but other than that, everyone had nothing to do, except for the people making the food. And the radio room was almost always manned. I talked about that last time. But we had the lounge, so we took out all the seats. That was one of the first things because the coach was used as storage for a while. We took them all out, and we polished up the floor nice afterwards. I've talked about how difficult that is. We put 2 of the chandeliers that we had, one at each end of the coach, and then we covered up a few of the windows in the middle. And for that we could mount a screen. Initially it was going to be a screen with a projector, but a projector turned out to be a lot and fairly difficult because those bulbs burn out all the time. So we had a projector, and then we got rid of the projector because the bulb died. It did occur to me that it's not fairly difficult to get projectors because they're not exactly in high demand, but a TV worked just as well. So we went for a TV that didn't take a lot of power, which was, I mean, we could do it. It was doable. Although we did end up testing quite a few of them. We would hook them up to the equivalent of one battery and see how long they would last. We obviously had to screw with the voltage of the battery to get it to operate, but that's a story for, that's a completely different topic, basically. We stashed some like tables and chairs in there. Obviously, we got a couch in. I don't see why that'd be obvious actually, but we got a couch in. We set it across from the TV, and a couple of chairs. We tried to keep away from things that were too heavy or too bulky, but for the most part, it didn't matter too much in that coach. There was something to do with the heating in that coach. We were going to give it its own stove, and then we figured that wasn't really necessary. And then we did end up having a little electric heater that was kept in there, because it was the only place that would really be necessary. So, yeah. The thing is, with those old coaches, they aren't insulated at all, and I'll get to this again when I talk about the barracks in a while. But the lounge, we didn't really feel the need to go all out, because if it's cold and late, you don't need to be in there. Go into another place. Although, it was a meeting room. It had enough floor space, unlike the war room and the radio room with their table and desks, respectively. There was plenty of floor space in there, so you could bring people in. You could fit, the entire crew of the train and then some, in order to give a presentation, which was what the TV was good for. We used things for that a couple of times. But in order to give, like, a speech or a directive to everyone, send out orders and stuff like that. We didn't exactly have meetings in there on the regular, but if I wanted to get everyone together, or if somebody wanted to get everyone together, that's where we'd do it. If we didn't want to do it outside the train. Because we would do it outside the train. We had plenty of times where somebody was standing on the pilot of the engine and talking, or standing on the rear platform of the caboose and talking. But that's what that was for. And so the quote-unquote transformation of the coach happened relatively quickly compared to some of the other ones, because all we did was clear out the space. And then slowly we brought stuff in. So we brought the TV and the couch in, and the TV was like, what are we going to do? How are we going to do this? And so I said, well, we'll board up some of the windows. And that was all well and good, because we took the glass out of them and used them for windows that had been broken. And then put the TV in front of those, and then we brought in like a couple of, like a deck, chair, and table set was at one end of the coach. It was a little thing. It was mostly for, it had like a dedicated chessboard, because it was just 2 seats. We had an actual card table at the other end where we'd play cards and board games and stuff like that. We had to take care to get either board games which were designed to be used on the go, or ones that we would basically retrofit with magnets. We would build a little strip. We'd put a little strip of steel or something underneath the way, like in Monopoly, for example. You'd put it underneath all the spaces, and then you'd put little magnets on the bottom of all the pieces. And the Monopoly pieces are already metal, so it was a little bit weird, but you'd just glue them on top of magnets. And then there you go. Then you have a board where if the train hits a bump, then the pieces don't all go flying. The chess set was a magnetic chess. It was actually designed for travel. So there you go. That was something that was already settled. But the board games all get retrofitted, and we had quite a few. And the problem with them was then you couldn't fold them back up, so you had a stack of boards, and you had a little cabinet full of all the different pieces for these games, and those were at one end of the coach, and the couch and TV were in the middle, and the other table was at the other end of the coach, And there were some, like, throw rugs and stuff. It was a fairly simple coach. A lot of it was open. But it was just for lounging. And then slowly sometimes we'd bring in more furniture and then get rid of some furniture. Because it would get cluttered. People were like, oh, let's save this couch. That was a coach where, I swear to God, one of the walls was like a revolving door, because you can't get a couch in through the door, in through the vestibule door. It's not going to happen. So, one of the walls basically became like a removable section. We took it off and to get the couch in initially, and we decided, okay, this probably is going to happen a lot. We're going to basically retrofit this so we can pop the wall off. And we did that. So it was like, you undo a bunch of screws and pull the wall section off. It was not an easy thing to do. Wall section was really heavy. You needed like 10 guys. A bunch of them on the inside, and then a bunch of them on the outside. The removable wall section, so that was within a couple of weeks we decided on that, because that was the couch debacle. And then we decided, okay, wait, we need a better way to do this. And so we built these struts on top of the coach, where you could you could get people inside to push on the bottom of the wall, and the top of the wall was hinged. And so the struts folded down, and they had little pulleys on them, so you could have guys up top pulling on a rope that would pull the wall up like a garage door, almost, open outward, and then you could get more stuff in. And it was something that we wanted to do with some of the other coaches, because it made things so convenient to get big stuff into the train, but we never had a reason to get big stuff into the train. We never had a reason to put anything that sizable into the rest of the coaches. Everything else came in piecemeal. So, except for the very rare thing, but that was the thing where we're like, let's get a new couch. Unfortunately, the supply of couches kind of ran thin towards the end of it, because nobody's making new ones, and old ones get ratty real fast when they're left in effectively an abandoned environment with either windows open or, no heat and no heat, nobody to fix the roof, no air conditioning. They're abandoned. They're inside a house, but they're abandoned. And occasionally would stumble upon households with basically pristine stuff, and most of the time it would just already be ruined from water damage or whatever. But I mean, that's a note. Houses for the most part held up, but it was December when it happened, so there weren't too many open windows. But the fact that nobody was there to turn on the heat ever, that was its own problem. And people did sort of run out. Great Panic was panicky. And a lot of houses sort of either got looted already, so you'd get doors kicked in or just left open. Or, if we were the first ones there, then we'd find a couple of things that were worthwhile. But how vain is that? That was sort of my thing. Every time the survey or the scouting team would come back like, oh, we gotta get this piece of furniture for the lounge. Like, how vain are you? Oh, right. It's like, what, this is what you went out to get? You just used, like, a bunch of people to carry a couch back to the train? Or, you're calling requisition to have somebody unload one of the actual vehicles to drive out there and get a couch? But it was, it was one of the little things. It would never come up when we had actual problems, but it was one of the little things where it's like, okay, this is our life now. It was a little bit of a reminder. It meant that we'd sort of settled a lot, but it was a reminder that we're fairly well off and we didn't have to worry too much. So that was good. It was good overall to have that little thing, and the lounge was, the lounge was something that spoke to that. The fact that we did fairly well, and when we would get people on, we'd sort of spiff up the lounge as best we could, because we wanted to show off. We wanted to make people know that, we're the zombie train and we're good. we can help. because if we didn't help, we wouldn't have any of that. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you next week. Train Man out.